And welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. All throughout the month of November, I'm aiming to bring you a brand new review each and every day. Now, it might be a written review over on thegaminggang.com, or it might be a video review hosted by yours truly, as is obviously the case today. And today I am going to share my thoughts on Dragonbane Path of Glory from Free League Publishing. This is written by Roger Undhagen, Thomas Harenstam, Vante Landgraf, and Matthias Johnson Hack. And I apologize, I guarantee I've mispronounced at least one of those names. Our work is provided by Johan Egerkrans and David Brizgala. This 156-page hardcover with PDF arrived this week. Does carry an MSRP of $39.99. You can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. Also, stay tuned because I am going to let you know how 2 lucky viewers are going to win a copy of Path of Glory in PDF. And I promise I won't make it very difficult to get into the running. But you have to keep watching because I'm not going to tell you how to get into the running at the end of the video. It'll be during my review that I tell you that. All right, all that said, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Path of Glory for Dragonbane. A few things to mention before we jump on in. First of all, my friends over at Free League Publishing were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. These days, it's very important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of this adventure campaign, but I do want to give you a good feel for what's in the book. And then lastly, this is an adventure campaign. So if you're a player and your game master has picked this up and they're getting ready to run it, or maybe they're talking about picking this up, even though I'm going to stay relatively spoiler-free, there are going to be some spoilers. So you have been warned that you might see some of the surprises ruined as I page through this book. Now, of course, if your game master is thinking about picking this up, let them know about this review so they can approach Path of Glory and make a far more informed buying decision. So first thing we'll be doing is taking a look at the credits page. A lot of folks worked very hard to bring this to life, so let's give them credit where credit is due. As far as production quality, fantastic. It's what we've come to expect from Free League Publishing. We've got the really nice heavyweight paper stock, nice matte finish to it. Really, really love the artwork from David Brizgala throughout this. I absolutely love the work he's done with Dragonbane. Really exceptional stuff. Like it a ton. Now, as far as the campaign itself, these 3 adventures originally were published for the Swedish edition of Dragonbane, which has been around since the 1980s. And they were released as 3 separate adventures, although still part of a campaign. And they came out in 1985 and 1986. So this is actually the first time all 3 adventures have been included in a single volume, obviously enough, in English, and actually updated for this new edition of Dragonbane. So very cool, very nice. Now, as far as the adventure itself, kind of standard fantasy fare as far as the overall tale. These 3 mages learn of a way that they can bring this demon back to power. And the 3 mages were all friends, but not anymore. So now they are adversaries, and each of them is looking for a way to go about bringing this demon back to power. And the player characters find themselves starting off in what's known as the Dead Forest, which is under a curse. So the Dead Forest is dying, and the player characters might be there simply because they're in search of glory, or maybe they've found out about this curse and they're looking for a way to lift the curse. Gotta say, the hook to get the players involved is a little bit weak. Now, we do have a variety of different factions in play here, Myself as a game master, I would probably look to incorporate that a little bit more as far as the hook. Try to get the player characters to have a little more skin in the game as opposed to just, oh, well, we're searching for glory. So keep that in mind. As far as the adventures themselves, they are interconnected. So they do make a campaign. I got to be honest, I can't really see a game master utilizing the adventures as standalone adventures without having to go through quite a bit of modification. But the reality is, it could be done. Now, as far as the campaign goes, this is not overly linear outside of the three main chapters. So the player characters are going to start with the first chapter, which leads to the second, which leads to the third. If you are familiar with Dragonbane, or even some of the other Free League publishing fantasy role playing games, what they tend to do is they tend to have adventure locations, adventure sites. And then the player characters are free to explore those however they would like. And some people will absolutely love that. I'm a big fan. Others who are more used to a very linear approach to adventure design probably will have a trickier time of it. Now, thankfully, all throughout, the information is presented very logically. So the game master is not going to have a very difficult time running these adventures. Most of the information that they're going to need is going to be right there in front of them. They're not going to have to flip back and forth through the book to find things. And the presentation, as far as the adventure sites themselves, really well done too. Definitely like that. We get bits of read aloud that the game master can either read or they can paraphrase, but we do not see 20 paragraphs of read aloud in a single entry or anything like that. Everything is pretty succinct, pretty to the point. Now, we're not talking about everything being bullet points, but we do have all of the information right there at hand. So, as far as the game master is concerned, should be relatively easy in order to run the three adventures. Now, I will say that some of the 1980s design philosophy is very, very present in these adventures. And what I mean by that is we get quite a bit of dungeon delving here. We do have some opportunities for the player characters to think outside the box. I would also have to say that we're probably looking at a bit more combat heavy than you would think with a Free League publishing fantasy adventure. So we do have a lot of combat going on. So you know that. But I mean, obviously enough, there are various different ways for the player characters to avoid combat encounters, to parlay, to outsmart their opponents before it gets into combat. But having said that, we do have quite a bit of combat going on in the three adventures. This is also jam-packed with content that could be used for other adventures. So I like that quite a bit. The adventure sites are very well mapped out. The cartography is very clear also. Definitely like that. As an example, when I was talking about how information is presented right there in front of you as far as the game master goes. So this is a set piece here across the lake. We get information about it. We get some random events. We get the monster that's kind of at the heart of this set piece. Get the different locations on the island. So as you can see, everything is right there in front of the game master so that they're not going to sit there flipping back and forth, as I mentioned. Strangely enough, the two minotaurs that are on the cover of Path of Glory, I thought they were going to be major players in this adventure campaign, like recurring villains or something like that. They're really not. I'm kind of surprised that they're the NPCs that are on the cover of the book. I would have thought it's this one necromancer character would probably be better suited to be like the cover boy of this campaign. like I said, I thought it was kind of strange. I mean, I like the artwork and the two minotaurs are cool, but it's simply an encounter out of a multitude of encounters. I personally think that I would have a lot of fun running this, and I think my players would have a very good time with this as well. Should also point out, if you don't have Dragonbane, or maybe mechanically Dragonbane isn't your cup of tea, this campaign could be ported over to a percentile based fantasy role playing game relatively easily. Keep that in mind. All in all, really nice work. The adventure campaign throughout is solid. It's not mind blowing by any stretch of the imagination. It is pretty standard fantasy fare where the player characters are off in search of various different keys to do different things. But still, all in all, really nicely done. We also get a poster map, which I thought is really cool. Here's the dead forest on one side. And then on the other side, we have got the Eastern lands. But as I mentioned, the cartography, really cool, really well done. So that is a peek inside Dragonbane Path of Glory from Free League Publishing. Now, if you'd like to get into the running to win one of 2 copies of Path of Glory in PDF, I'll make it very, very simple for you. First of all, you need to be a subscriber to the channel. Second, please give the video a thumbs up. I can't honestly tell if you do or not, but do me a favor. And if you're going to get involved in the contest, give the video a thumbs up. And then lastly, in the comments section, let me know what's an aspect of Dragonbane which intrigues you. Easy enough. And then I will randomly select 2 lucky winners and announce them on my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, for November 26th. So you can tune in then, find out if you won. All right, let's swing on over to the other camera. I'm going to share some final thoughts and give this my review score. So all in all, I really like Path of Glory. Yes, in some ways, you can feel the 1980s design philosophy throughout these adventures. But then again, I enjoy old school adventures anyway, so I'm very happy with that. Granted, some people out there might want to have a little more hand holding as far as running these adventures, or have things to be far more linear. I do wish that it was a little lighter on combat. I mean, there are some encounters that the player characters are going to have to fight. I always like to see more options for the players to outsmart their opponents or parlay with their opponents. Just a variety of different ways for them to maybe skirt a combat encounter. Granted, it's not over the top. It's not like every time you turn around, you're going to be sitting there resolving combat encounters. No, but this is pretty heavy into the combat. I should also mention that this is designed for experienced characters. So you do not want to roll up new characters and jump on into Path of Glory, because those characters are not going to survive. In fact, it's recommended that those characters have between 10 to 15 sessions of play under their belts before you break out Path of Glory. Production quality throughout is fantastic. As I said, I honestly think I would have an absolute blast running Path of Glory. This is the sort of adventure campaign I really like to get into. It doesn't overstay its welcome either. So you're going to get plenty of gaming out of this adventure campaign, but it's not as if it's going to occupy years at your game table either. So on a score of 0 to 10, I give Dragonbane Path of Glory an 8.5 out of 10. Certainly do recommend it. Love the artwork throughout, and the production quality, of course, once again, fantastic. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It will not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, It'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit the newly redesigned thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.